Hello, the median price of a rental in Cambridge, Massachusetts today is the three-bedroom rental in Cambridge, Massachusetts today is $3,650. I'm Christopher Schmidt, and this is Renters Matter, your weekly summary of the political actions in the Cambridge city from the perspective of a renter. Tonight is the end of the year. This is my last show of the year, coming up into Christmas and the New Year, and I wanted to take a little bit of a look at what housing in Cambridge has looked like, and what the political movement in Cambridge has looked like over the past year. So the biggest thing recently, of course, and the reason why I'm sitting here speaking to you today, is that Cambridge has gone through an election. Cambridge went through an election in November, and the Cambridge City Council didn't change much. There was one seat that was open. Jan Devereaux had decided to not continue her role as a city councilor, and one seat that changed over to a new, sorry about that, there we go, and one seat that changed over to a new city council member beyond that. So there were two changes in the current city council going into the new city council. One was Jan Devereaux stepping down, and one was Craig Kelly, who was not re-elected. The two new members of the Cambridge City Council will be Patty Nolan, who's been a long-term member of the Cambridge School Committee, and the other is Jeevan Sabrina Wheeler, who is a member of the Boston DSA and an expert in land use policy, working at the Lincoln Land Policy Institute, I believe, on these things for a long time. So that'll be interesting to see what things look like in the new year. Of course, one of the biggest issues in the 2019 year was the Cambridge Affordable Housing Overlay. The Cambridge Affordable Housing Overlay was an attempt to allow greater density in development, specifically to allow affordable housing developers, that is nonprofits mostly, or for-profit organizations that create affordable housing, restricted income housing, etc., to be able to build slightly denser buildings throughout Cambridge. People will argue with my slight, but I don't care. And that was the big signature issue of the 2019 year. Now, this is, in my opinion, an important step forward. It is something that should have easily passed. It is something that is specifically targeting at making life easier for low-income families, trading off and costing the city nothing, and creating an environment where lower-income families would have more options for looking for where to live. It didn't pass. In fact, it was a huge contentious issue that divided the city left, right, and center. Well, really, no, just bad and good. And it's really a shame. It's really a shame that the city was not able to move forward and agree that creating more affordable housing for low-income residents was something that's worth almost any trade-off, which is my position. I think that people shouldn't have to live on the streets. I think we should create housing for them. I think that people shouldn't have to deal with being afraid that they won't be able to afford rent, period. But certainly I think that those who are disabled, those who are seniors, those who are low-income earners should be able to have housing available to them. And there are a number of nonprofits who want to do that. But in order to compete with rich assholes like me, who want to buy housing, with rich assholes like me who want to, own their own property, this has been really difficult for these nonprofits, because if you're going to create housing for low-income residents, you're not going to be able to make money on it. And that means that in order to compete, they need to be able to keep their costs low on acquisition of land. And it turns out that if you want to buy a 15,000 square foot parcel of land in Cambridge, it's just really expensive, because almost all of them have houses on them. And the people who are selling them want to get their money back for their houses. And if you're only allowed to build a single-family house or a two-family house or whatever it is, this can be a real challenge. So that's what the Affordable Housing Overlay was all about. It was about making it so that you could build not just a single-family house on that 15,000 square foot lot, but instead something more like what you see throughout the rest of Cambridge. It didn't go well. It didn't pass. I'm hoping that in the new year we see that. But that's not the only thing that I'm hoping that we see in the new year. The reality is that it's not just the affordable housing overlay that is a tool that we failed to take advantage of in this year. It is also the fact that we simply failed to make much in the way of any housing. While there are a bunch of while there is a bunch of permanent housing that has been kind of in the pipeline for a while, there were no new housing permits issued, no new special permits issued for housing that had more than 10 units in 2019. There was also no new housing special permits issued for 2018. In fact, the last major housing development that we saw permitted was 525 units that was in a development out on Wheeler Street in the Alewife area, and that has been held up for the past year or 6 months, whatever, for a while, based on a lawsuit by a number of residents in that region. And in fact, Cambridge added, even in construction, between the beginning of the year and October of 2019, added only 459 units. Homes is another way you might say that. And amusingly, I love this. 28 of those homes were single-family homes, because like the idea that we need single-family homes is apparently, something that people feel strongly about. I don't know. So in a city as dense as Cambridge, I don't feel that we should be building new single-family homes. I think that there's so much demand, and we're in the middle of a housing crisis, and we should be doing something different than that. But in total, 431 homes. So Cambridge has about 50,000-ish homes in total right now. Which means that those 431 homes constitute less than 1% of the total homes in Cambridge. That is, we have, in the midst of a housing crisis, increased the total supply of places that people can move into, places that people could move out of a home where their landlord is abusive towards them. People could move out of a home where their home caught fire, could move out of something that is not sitting in their style as they have more children or anything else like that. We have built only 431 new homes in a city where the vacancy rate is approximately less than 1%. Now, a healthy vacancy rate in a town, as far as the Boston 2030 report says, is about 7% of rental units should be vacant at any given time. This basically means that about 1 month out of the year that a given unit should be vacant. And this makes a fair amount of sense, right? Like, if you're moving out of your place, you would kind of expect that your landlord would go ahead and, clean it up and have to show it and get somebody to come in. In reality, of course, we all know that in Cambridge and Boston, what happens is that your landlord tromps through your house at any hour of the day to show it to a new prospective tenant. But ideally, the 7% vacancy rate is what achieves the kind of moderate balance, or the reasonable balance between you have enough housing and you don't. Cambridge's vacancy rate, again, is in the 1 to 2% range at any given time. And in fact, Zillow, which has a lot of rentals listed on it, is oftentimes an overestimate of what the vacancy rate is, because many of the apartments that you will see on Zillow that give you a sense of what apartments might cost will actually not be available currently, but will be available in, September of 2020. Which doesn't help you if you're trying to move right now. The reality is that the entire Boston region is suffering from a drastic undersupply of housing. Just is. And we built 400 homes this year. And in the end of the year, maybe we will build 550, because we've only got data through October right now. There's 2 more whole months of the year. So there's going to be another 10%-ish or so. So maybe we'll make it up to 550 homes even, in a city with 50,000 homes and a housing crisis where people can't afford to live because there's so much demand to live here. Cambridge is a great city. Cambridge is a great city. I love living here. I've lived here for 15 years. I don't want to live anywhere else. But when we only increase the amount of housing by 1%, while we increase the number of jobs by 3%, and while we are in a place where the overall jobs in the region, including Boston and other regional areas, has gone up by 7%, what we're going to see is the housing goes up in cost. Now, what have we done to try and combat this in the city this year? If you look at the political outcomes of what has happened this year, what have we achieved? Well, we rejected the New Street development that would have created mostly storage space, but also some affordable housing. That's gone. We did approve all of the necessary bits, as far as I know, although there is a planning board meeting that needs to come up to this. But we did approve the idea of building out the Sullivan Courthouse. The parking was leased to them, and they can proceed with that. They will, in the process of revamping the Sullivan Courthouse, create 48 new units, which is good. And all of those units will be affordable housing, available to people who make between 50% and 80% of area median income. That's great. 48 units that are probably going to be built 3-ish years from now, just given that they have to remediate asbestos from a giant tower of asbestos and rebuild something and everything else like that. 3 years from now, we'll have 50 more homes in a city with a wait list of 5,000 residents and 20,000 people who want to live here. All right. Just recently, the lottery for and application process for homes at the Finch Cambridge development, which is on Concord Ave over in Cambridge near the Burger King, that was just initiated, completed, whatever. So there will be a number of people who are applying to those 98 units. Great. It's a really great development. It's built by and to passive house standards. So passive house is an energy efficiency standard. I'm really excited about that. 98 homes. They expect 10,000 applicants for those homes. And that project was permitted a while ago. It's been under construction for a while. So 10,000 applicants for those 100 homes. There's going to be a lot of disappointed people. In fact, 99% of the people-ish that apply will probably be disappointed because they won't get someplace to live. What else have we done? The CameraTech Galleria. CameraTech Galleria rezoning petition just passed today, or Monday, not today, Monday. What that means is that there will be another 400,000 square feet of permitted commercial and office space, as well as 150,000 to 180,000-ish square feet of space for housing. 65% of that housing will be explicitly limited to people who make below the median income, which means that in order to get access to that housing, you'll have to be on a waiting list, that waiting list of 20,000 people for a while. How you get in there, again, all of these things vary, but that this is something that will exist, and that getting access to that housing will be very difficult. In total, probably 180 to 200 units of housing will be created, which is great, except for the fact that in addition, we're going to create 400,000 square feet of office and commercial space, which will have about, 1,200 people who want to work there, which means that by the time you get done and to the end of that whole process, you've added 1,200 people more worth of demand while only adding 150 homes, even if the rate of people living in homes is 2.1 or 2.3 or 2.5 to 1, you're adding more demand than you are adding supply. And when you add demand that's greater than supply, Econ 101 tells us, by the way, that's not going to work out so well for you unless you want your prices to go up. Okay. Still a good thing. I think that upzoning the CameraTech Galleria, adding more office and commercial space right near the Green Line near Leechmere is going to be great. I think it's a really good development. I'm glad the council approved it. We've talked before about the aspects of contract zoning where I feel a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that this is all a negotiation that has taken up tens of hours of council time in order to allow what should be a reasonably moderate increase in density along a place where we already have a lot of density because look at all the hotels and everything else out there, but whatever. Okay, fine. So we did that. What else did we do? What else do you look at in 2019 and say, look, city council, you made my life better as a renter? Last week we talked a little bit about the tenant displacement report, and how the city is planning to fight evictions and allow more people to stay in their homes. And I think that's great. I mean, I talked about some of the shortcomings and the flaws, but it's really a good step. 2 years of work and task force and formation and everything else like that went into it. It was, delivered months later than it was expected. In July, one of the leaders of that effort said that it would be done in September. And another counselor asked, okay, well, what year? And it seemed like a snarky comment at the time, but it is worth noting that it was only released about a week ago, shortly before the council's last meeting of the year. It's not exactly like the question was entirely unreasonable that it would not be necessarily released in 2019, but it was, and I think it's an important step. But what else? What do you feel like the city council has done for renters this year? Because I look around and I don't see a lot. I see that they, made sure that the tax rates continue to be low for property owners, which is good for them, not for me. I see that the renters of Cambridge took a significant step towards electing a council that better represented them. Even Sabrina Wheeler, who was newly elected to the council, is a renter, has always been a renter, and one of the parts of his platform was that we should allow triple-deckers everywhere in the city, of the style that have been existed and throughout Cambridge forever. That we should legalize construction of the type of housing that we already see. That this is something that we should do, and this is something that he made a campaign platform. In fact, he made it a campaign platform, and it was integrated into the A Better Cambridge campaign platform. It said, we should legalize triple-deckers. Should eliminate single-family zoning, we should legalize triple-deckers. And I would love to see that happen. Reality is that I think it's a complicated process, and I expect that it will be like the tenant displacement report, something that we spend 2 years on, don't make any progress on, and then have to go on the next council. But sure, great. What else did we do? Sure, there's Mass and Main, and there's North Point. There's some permitting of projects that were already built. We saw some office space converted to hotel space, or maybe hotel space converted to office space. We did see, and will see, the unveiling of a new hotel in Central Square next year. The current schedule is March, but, schedules slip. We do see new housing being built across the street from the CCTV offices in Central Square, the Mass and Main, or Mass Central, or whatever they're calling it now. Development will probably open its doors next year, and that's great. But those things are things that happened years ago. So if we look forward 3 years from now, what thing that happened this year do we expect to be open in 2021? Not a lot. Even the CameraTech Galleria, which was a long and involved fight, where they filed it and they had to refile and they've gone through all this process, is a case where we're not going to have homes built. This is going to be 10 years of development, and they haven't even applied for special permits yet. If you look at the courthouse, that's something where it was a long fight. A lot of people had very strong opinions. It will create 400,000 square feet of office space as well as 48 homes. But it'll do that 3 to 5 years from now. Nothing that is happening in the council in 2019, in my opinion, will be creating new housing, will be creating new protections for renters. We've fallen down on the job. We've fallen down on the job, and as a result, there are going to be more people who don't have any place to go when their rent goes up. We're going to have more people who have no place to go when their landlord decides that, it's really a problem that you have pets, and I don't want that anymore. We're going to have no place for people to go when they get a new job in Cambridge and want to move here. We're going to have no place for people to go when they're tired of living in the MIT dorm and want to go out and find someplace else. Because the reality is the 1% of new homes that we created, it's not going to be enough. It's not enough by far, and we know that. We have to do more. So in 2019, we didn't accomplish much. But one thing we did accomplish was changing the outcome of the election. Or rather, seeing the outcome of the election? I don't know. I feel like I played a little role in changing it, but regardless, the outcome of the election plays a role in what the future is going to look like. So what does that mean? What that means is that we have, rather than 5 counselors who support the idea of creating more housing and 4 who don't, which is how I think things were before, we have 6 counselors who support the idea of creating new housing and 3 who don't. But what they think is going to be varied. One of the things I think is important as an example of a way that we can take steps towards averting or mitigating our climate crisis as well as solving our housing issue is we can stop requiring developers of housing to create 1 parking space per home. In a city where 70% of the population commutes by some means other than single occupancy trip in a car, the idea that we make every space of every home have a parking space doesn't really make sense, and we should stop that. In 2020, we should look at changing the amount of housing that we create in our squares and on our major streets. In 2020, I hope that we will pass the affordable housing overlay, which will allow nonprofits who have historically been locked out of the market due to the high price of housing relative to the zoning. In 2020, I hope that we take steps to try and protect tenants, whether that's rent control or preventing condo conversions, or whether that's any other legal means that we can use to try and keep tenants in their homes, including spending money. In 2020, I hope we'll just try and do better. Because if you look at the last decade of housing prices, what you will see is that the rent has grown at 50% over the past decade, while the amount of income that people have has grown at less than half of that. What you will see is that as we have created Cambridge as a more desirable place for people to be, that we have not done enough to provide homes where those people can live. And I really, really hope that we can do better than all of those things. I really, really hope that we can take steps towards making Cambridge a more welcoming place, because as much as all our welcome here is a statement that we try to espouse as a value, living that value matters. We're not living that value right now. All are not welcome here. Only those who can pay significant amounts are welcome here. If you want to live in a 3-bedroom apartment, you better be making more than $120,000 a year. Otherwise, there's no chance you could live here. You want to be living in Cambridge, you better be rich. Or maybe not rich, but at least the upper middle class, whatever that means in this day and age. You better be doing more. And when your landlord comes after you for leaving the lights on or turning on a faucet too much or not taking out the trash or bringing the bins in time, you better hope that you got another city you want to live in and don't have any kids in the schools, because otherwise you're not going to have another place to live and you're going to really, really suffer. It's going to be hard. For renters in Cambridge, 2020 is going to be as hard or more difficult than 2019 was. And 2019 was the result of a continuous escalation throughout the entire decade that we have been living in. I have been living in Cambridge for 15 years, and every year it has gotten harder for people. We're lucky, extremely lucky, that we have the benefit of a massive commercial tax base. We're extremely lucky that we have the benefit of being a wealthy city. We're able to spend what we need to on schools. We're able to spend what we need to on infrastructure and resources. But what we're not doing at the moment is valuing renters. What we're not doing at the moment is saying we value all the people who live here, even the people who can't afford to buy a house at $1 million, even the people who can't afford to buy a condo at $750,000, even the people who've just come from nothing and want to live here. That we want to value the students who make up 20%, almost 20% of Cambridge's population. That we want to value the new entrants into a workforce who are moving here because there's jobs in Cambridge and Boston. That we want to value the longtime residents of Cambridge who've been here for 50 years. That we want to value those who've been here their entire lives. It's hard to look at the political actions of the current council and feel like all of those groups' needs are being met. It really is. And I hope that in 2020, we can take steps to support all of those. In 2020, I hope to be talking to more residents and in Cambridge, more people who are involved in the Cambridge political scene, bringing in more guests. If you are watching this and are interested, you can email me, crschmidt@crsschmidt.net, and let me know. You can come in and speak with me, and we can have a conversation. You can tell me how wrong I am, whether you're a landlord or a renter, whether you're a city council member or a city resident, or someone from far away coming in to say, this guy sucks. All those are welcome. I hope you have a lovely holiday season. I hope you have a lovely new year. Stay awesome. Lived in Cambridge for 15 years, and I really don't want to leave. I hope I don't have to. Happy 2019. I'm looking forward to 2020.